Welcome to this episode of our program, Daily Debate. Today we'll be speaking about a very important event that took place just a few minutes and ended definitely just a few minutes from now, since 6 Cairo local time. And President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, the Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces, attended the graduation ceremony of a new cadets of the military, or rather new cadets of the military academy and military colleges for the year 2023. In the course of the ceremony, President Sisi placed the military order of the Republic on the Armed Forces flag. The President also attended a military show performed by the new graduates, another show conducted by Air Forces, and a third by the Cavalry Corps. During the ceremony, President Sisi and the attendees stood to salute the flags of the brotherly Arab states that supported Egypt in the Great October victory. A documentary on the military academy and military colleges was also shown. Upon arrival at the military academy headquarters, the head of state was welcomed by senior statesmen and top military officials and officers. The graduation ceremony gains a special importance this year as Egypt marks the 50th anniversary of the 6th of October victory. In statements said or addressing the ceremony, President Sisi said that Palestine is the first Arab priority, and it is important that its people remain steadfast and exist on their own lands. The President said that we are ready to harness all our efforts to mediate in coordination with the active parties without any restrictions or conditions. President Sisi called for providing maximum protection for civilians on both sides immediately and avoiding the policy of collective punishments, siege, starvation and displacement by the occupied authorities. President Sisi said that the international community must assume the responsibilities in providing humanitarian aid to the Palestinians and open corridors for the safe reach of those aids or humanitarian aid. The President said that the situation on our eastern, western and southern borders is very tense, but Egypt remains safe and reassured. President Sisi said that we are making a very great effort to contain the current escalation in Gaza, stop the fighting and alleviate the burden on the Palestinian people. The President said that we never look outside our existing borders, and Egypt has no ambitions for the land, for any outside lands or the capabilities of others. The President said that Egypt has always and forever been at the forefront of defending the Arab nations. The President said that we have not failed our Arab nation and we will never fail it. The President said that our foreign policy aims for peace, development and construction, and our first choice is the strategic peace. The President said that what is happening in Gaza is aimed at liquidating the Palestinian cause. The President said that we have 9 million guests who came for security and safety. He said that the region is witnessing a dangerous turning point that deviates the Palestinian issue from its correct path. The President said that I demand that civilians and children be removed from the circles of brutal conflict and sit at the negotiating table. The President also said that Egypt will always remain safe despite all the circumstances and challenges surrounding it. He said that the Egyptian population is really facing lots of challenges, big challenges, since 2011 And despite that, Egypt has always remained steadfast with the unity of its people. He called on people, on the Egyptian citizens, to avoid divide, to unite, and to dismiss rumors that aim at dividing the Egyptian population. These were the main messages of the President today in the graduation ceremony of the new cadets of the military academy and the military colleges. And definitely each of the messages that were sent today, each of the shows that were shown today has their own significance and have their own message.
إلى تصعيد ينحرف عن هذا المسار وإلى صراعات صفرية لا منتصر فيها ولا مهزوم صراعات تخل.
Right, welcome back. And definitely throughout the day there were a number of phone calls with the President and with the Foreign Minister, and throughout the past few days Egypt has witnessed lots and lots of phone calls with all world leaders who are trying to coordinate a position towards the escalation in the Palestinian occupied territories and the provocative action and of course of the Israeli occupation forces, which has led to such a situation. And we will be speaking about that in our show tonight. Before we delve into our discussion, let's first have this quick look on this report, and we'll come back for more discussion.
Egypt called on all countries, regional and international organizations who are willing to offer humanitarian and rescue aid to the Palestinian people in Gaza Strip to send them to El Arish International Airport, which was allocated by authorities to receive humanitarian aid. A foreign ministry statement said the humanitarian responsibility and global moral value necessitates the international community to initiate offering aid to the Palestinian people that is currently suffering many dangers. The statement also pointed that Egypt underscores that Rafah border crossing between Egypt and Gaza Strip is open for work and was not closed at any stage since the start of the current crisis, adding that nevertheless the crossing's main utilities on the Palestinian side were demolished as a result of several Israeli bombardments which prevented it to work normally. Egypt also called on Israel to evade targeting the Palestinian side from the border crossing to make the renovation work succeed to make it suitable for supporting Palestinians in the Strip. This came as the first shipment of humanitarian aid arrived in Sinai on Thursday from Jordan to be transported into Gaza. In the meantime, a Turkish Defense Ministry official said Turkey is prepared to send humanitarian aid to Palestinians hit by the conflict centered on Gaza, but it was very hard to deliver it under the current circumstances. In Gaza, Palestinians lined up outside bakeries and grocery stores after spending the night surrounded by the ruins of the neighborhoods darkened by a near-total power outage. International aid groups warned that the death toll in Gaza would amount after Israel stopped all deliveries of food, water, fuel, and electricity to the tiny enclave. Palestinians fleeing airstrikes could be seen running through the streets carrying their belongings and looking for a safe place. Tens of thousands have crowded into UN-run schools, while others are staying with relatives or even strangers who let them in.
Right, welcome back. And before we delve into our discussion, let me first welcome our guest here, Ambassador Medhat and Meligi, a former Assistant Foreign Minister. Thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And let me take your reading to the statements said by the President today, but I really need to know from you, how did you view this graduation ceremony and this beautiful parade that we've seen by different forces in today's ceremony?
I could only describe it with one word: pride. I was very proud seeing those cadets and seeing our military forces performing in front of the President and his guests from different countries of the world who honored us by being there. And but before that, actually, I want to thank the President for his words. It seems that, I mean, he's having a very good service. I mean, he knows exactly what's going on in people's mind. I cannot say that I haven't heard, or I have heard today, the answer of so many questions I've been receiving from the Egyptian public about how are things, what is our vision regarding this or that point, and will there be an invasion of Sinai, and so many points that the President, in a nutshell, actually managed to answer all of them, which shows to which point the President is really in touch with the people's intuition and desire to know about the situation and the concerns of the people. So he answered all this today. Of course, we have to understand that the situation is very tense, very volatile.
Indeed.
And the President, although he's trying to reassure everyone, but of course it's not only Egypt as a player here. There are so many other parties involved. We've seen many messages addressed to the West, not just Israel, even the West, the countries that are supporting Israel and so on. We know that the Minister of, the State Minister, Mr. Blinken, was in Israel.
Yes.
And he gave unconditional support to Israel in self-defense and all these things. So there are many players on the scene. But the President, I think, he managed with his words to reassure the Egyptian public about their safety, about the borders of Egypt and its security, and that there is nothing to worry about from this point. And I think this was an important message to calm down and ease the concerns and anxiety of the Egyptian people.
Actually, there were different messages given today by the President. Of course, to culminate and assure people of how Egypt is ready for the situation, but also direct messages that are given to our people and outside. Let me take here, for an instant, the President started with how Egypt has always put Palestine as a first Arab file or in its priorities, and has always supported the Palestinian cause and the Palestinian people. And in that context, he said that any change to the geographic or the geopolitical nature, or the exactly the situation or taking the Palestinians out of their lands, that will really end and eradicate totally the Palestinian cause. How did you read that message?
Well, I read many levels in the words of the President. I mean, first of all, as I mentioned before, his first concern were the Egyptian people, who were anxious to know and to understand what's going on. This was the first priority, honestly, to the Egyptian President, is to reassure us of the stability and the security of our borders. Having said that, of course, there are so many other messages on so many levels, whether we are talking about the Palestinian as a priority that has always been there since 1948. We are the only country that had so many wars because of this conflict. So, I mean, we are in the front line. We have always been in the front line for Palestine. So this is nothing new here. But also other messages to the Israeli leaders, messages to the unconditional support of the West. And
For Israel, of course.
Of course. And so you can read this speech on many levels. But what I want to say here is that, and not just during the speech, in the past as well, I mean, the President have warned that when you lack any political issue to this conflict that has been going on for almost 60 years now, since 1967, as we all know, if we do not find a peaceful solution, this is going to be the result. And we've seen it. So nobody listened to that when Egypt and the President have warned from this, that it might happen because of the lack of any hope in the horizon. And this was, as much as it is a message to the Palestinians, it was a message to the Israelis as well, that you have to understand that you have to give the Palestinian hope in a better tomorrow. This was never there. It was never on the table. Actually, if you remember, since 1994, the Israeli refused even to sit with the Palestinian Authority to discuss any viable future for both countries. Everybody, and when I say everybody, I'm talking mainly about the West. I have to say the reality here. We've been given what we call a lip service from so many countries in the West, especially in the United States, about the two-state solution. But nothing was really implemented because there was no real pressure on
No
Israel.
evidence even to any will.
Exactly. I mean, there is no political will in Israel. And of course, with the extreme right governments, you always have this. And we've seen this not the first time where Mr. Netanyahu is a prime minister of Israel. We've seen it before, and there was no hope. So nobody was expecting anything this time. And he never mentioned anything about this. On the contrary, he mentioned that he can make peace with the Arabs before solving the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. And not to forget also about the Golan Heights. We all know that the Prime Minister of Israel was showing, at the United Nations, I believe, was showing a map of Israel where Jerusalem was annexed, where the Golan Heights was annexed, where the West Bank was annexed, all as part of Israel. This was a very provocative message. There are no hope here. And when there are no hope, you could expect this.
You're speaking here about the map he showed at the United Nations
Exactly.
General Assembly's
Yes.
latest...
Exactly.
And it was a very
provocative.
awkward map.
Exactly.
Yes.
But what I want to emphasize here is that there is when you don't really show any hope, you can expect things like that. The Palestinians have nothing to resort at but to go to violence. But let's not be taken in this frenzy of emotion, and let's sit and try to understand one thing. This is my point of view. What does Israel really want? Israel, I believe, it wants peace for its borders, when they mention where are their borders first, and second, for their people. And what they are doing is not helping to achieve the goal that they say that they want to reach. They cannot reach this goal by more aggression and suppression of the Palestinian. This does not lead to that. And that's why we ended up with the Al-Aqsa operation that we've seen on TV live, unfortunately, where so many lives were lost.
Al-Aqsa hurricane, yes.
And we cannot say that we support the loss of life, but at the same time, we also understand the reasons behind it.
Here, you pinpointed your finger on a very important issue that has been reiterated, or that you have reiterated the President saying that all those provocative actions that have been made before has pushed the Palestinian side to such outrage. And if I get back to what the President was speaking about, and then we'll get to the situation on the ground here. Let me here say that, or reiterate the President saying or calling on the international community to provide the maximum protection for civilians and avoid the policy of collective punishment, because this is the ongoing situation right now. Siege, starvation, displacements. The Palestinian territories is without electricity and water since yesterday. And he called on the international community to assume their responsibilities, speaking about the international community. And the president has stressed on this issue verbally and literally very much indeed. How do you read his statements? How do you read the position of the international community and the double standard that we are witnessing on the ground?
Well, the president, being the head of Egypt, he has to use his word very carefully.
Yes.
But I am sure that behind these words that he is not satisfied at all with the position of the international community, especially the Western countries led by the United States. I mean, what provoked them in the last assault, let's say, on Israeli settlements, and this is something very important that we have to mention, it's part of Israeli settlements, is that there was attack on civilians, and therefore they are supporting unconditionally the right of Israel to defend itself. We totally respect that from their point of view, but at the same time we say, how about our civilians? Are they lesser of a civilian than the Israeli ones? Why don't
Are they lesser than the Ukrainians?
This is another issue. This way we are going to go there, I mean, and go and come back. Because actually, I mean, why don't we defend the right of Russia to defend itself? Just as we are defending...
I'm just reflecting
yes.
how Arab people in
Yes.
the whole region are feeling towards seeing the situation,
Yes,
this
we all
situation
compare
on
this.
the other.
This is the double standard that you just mentioned. I mean, on one hand, we have the Ukrainians that are having unconditional support from the West. And this happened after the invasion of Ukraine with 48 hours. We've been trying for 70 years to just support verbally the Palestinian cause, and we didn't reach that. But with Ukraine, it just took 48 hours, and all the weapons start pouring to Ukraine, which is right, according to their point of view. Ukrainians have to defend themselves from the aggression of the Russians. But why don't Palestinians have the same right to defend themselves? So at the end of the day, we cannot say that both countries are not on equal footing. And they are not dealing with the Palestinian issue as the international law is seeing them. They are both subject of the international law, I mean, Ukraine and Palestine. But when it comes to Ukraine, they see it one way, and when it comes to Palestine, they see it in another way. And this is the main problem, because Israel have always, I don't know why, but always earned the right to do whatever it wants, and the world will turn a blind eye on what it's doing. Right now, we are witnessing a starvation and cut of electricity and water and all kind of supplies and fuel to the Gaza Strip. And this is hurting over 1 million civilians. Most of them, well, let's say half of them, are children. And yet, the international community is okay with that. I mean, we don't see any real condemnation from the Western countries who are really supporting Israel. So here, it's hard for us, and that's why I understand, if I may say, the frustration of the president when he is calling upon the West that you have to play a certain role that is more positive into finding a solution and not just supporting one side or the other.
Right. Before we continue on with our discussion, let's take this second report, and we'll come back for more discussion.
Israel continued on Thursday to hammer Hamas with thousands of strikes, with the death toll rising to 1,354 in Gaza. An Israeli army spokesman said the military was readying for a potential order to launch a ground invasion in the war with Hamas. The spokesman claimed that Hamas had by now fired more than 5,000 rockets at Israel, many of which have been intercepted by missiles defense systems. The United States has deployed an aircraft carrier battle group to the eastern Mediterranean in a show of support to Israel and warned Israel's other enemies not to enter the conflict. Israeli Energy Minister Katz vowed that the total siege of Gaza would continue until the 150 hostages are freed. Israel said there would be no humanitarian exceptions to its siege of the Gaza Strip until all the hostages were freed, after the Red Cross pleaded for fuel to be allowed in to prevent overwhelmed hospitals from turning into morgues. Hamas has threatened to kill the hostages if Israel bombs Gaza civilians' targets without advance warning. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres voiced concern about the supercharged cycle of the violence and horror, urged the release of all hostages and the lifting of the siege, and stressed that civilians must be protected at all times. Fears have grown for Gaza's 2.4 million residents now enduring the fifth war in 15 years in the long blockaded territory, which has also seen Israel cut off water, food and power supplies. The UN Humanitarian Office said Israeli strikes had leveled 1,000 homes since Saturday, with another 560 housing units rendered uninhabitable. It said an Israeli cutoff has resulted in dire water shortages for over 650,000 people. Sewage systems have been destroyed, sending fetid water into the streets. Israel has called up 300,000 reservists and rushed forces, tanks and heavy armor to the southern desert areas around Gaza, from where Hamas launched their unprecedented operation. The Israeli military said more than 1,300 people, including 222 soldiers, have been killed in Israel.
Right, welcome back, and back to you, Your Excellency. And the President here also spoke about the efforts that has been made in coordination to contain the current escalation in Gaza, stop the fighting and alleviate the burden on the Palestinian people. How do you view how Egypt is coordinating so far the situation?
Well, actually, I mean, I think there is a missing part here. I mean, Egypt is willing and have already dispatched several trucks with humanitarian aid, a convoy. But I don't think that there is still a clearance from the Israeli forces to allow this to enter. And that's why yesterday we've seen that they bombarded Rafah and
the other sides.
The other side, yes. And this shows that we are ready when we are allowed to do it. But so far, I don't think that I didn't hear about something penetrated already the Gaza Strip from the Egyptian side.
That's
or any other.
Course, another responsibility the President called on
exactly.
The Israelis and the international community to facilitate.
Exactly. Once again, we are talking here about civilians. So is the international community ready to stand by those civilians, or it does not consider them civilians, or it does not consider them worthy of the effort to receive any humanitarian aid? This is something that we have to wait for.
One important other, or definitely one of the most important messages that were given by the President today is that Egypt has never been looking outside its borders, and that has never had an ambition for the lands or the capabilities of other countries, and that Egypt's choice was always the strategic peace.
Exactly.
What does those words mean in the first place?
Well, it means first that when we are trying to help, or when we are trying to implicate ourselves in any regional conflict. It's not that we are waiting to gain something out of it, as much as we are trying to secure those people on one hand, and to secure our borders from the other side. I mean, we've seen ever since the fall of the Gaddafi regime in Libya, we didn't try to like invade Libya or send any troops there. We all know about the red line that was drawn by His Excellency the President and was respected so far, and I hope it will remain. But we did not try or escalate the situation by invading there, although we had the chance. Also in Sudan, we did not do the same thing. So the way I want to explain it to our viewers is that Egypt doesn't have any regional greediness into anything. Actually, we want just to help to secure our borders from all sides. As you know, from our eastern, from our western, from our south, we have regional problems, but we are trying to secure the Egyptian people. We are over 100 million, and we cannot play with those people a game that is risky. The president have always calculated each and every step he does before he does it in order not to implicate the Egyptian army or the Egyptian people into a situation that we cannot get out of it. And this is one thing that we have to praise the president for.
There are many important messages, but I don't know to...
Bring it on.
I don't know exactly what to... because our time is limited, but here is one other message that the President has spoken about, that we have not failed our Arab nations and we will never fail any of their causes. How do you read this message?
Well, of course, here it was addressed more to the Palestinian cause and the Palestinian people, because at the end of the day, whether people are criticizing or are praising, it's the armed movement, but they fail to speak about the people, the Palestinian people, the regular people who are not carrying any weapons or anything. They just want to make ends meet. That's it. And they are failing because of the situation, as you know. So the president here is emphasizing that we are always beside the Palestinian, as long as, and this is something very important, and you mentioned it, as long as everyone is sticking to his territory. Nobody is leaving his territory to go elsewhere. We have to make clear that the border with Palestine are here to receive who we want to receive when we accept to receive them according to the rules we apply. Nobody can just enter because there is a problem there. They have to stay within their own territory, not just because we don't want anybody we don't want in our country, but because this will liquidate the solution, and this is maybe one of the reasons why the Israelis are trying to do what they are doing. And we are not ready to accept any more refugees than the one we have, and we are not planning to have Sinai as a second home for Palestinians. These are out of the questions, out of the negotiations, and they are not to be discussed. So, I mean, we have to understand this. The president was very clear. He said it in very diplomatic words that I'm not going to use today, but I just want to say that Egypt's borders are a red line, and they are sacred, and they are not going to be penetrated as easy as anybody could think. So they all have to be contained within these premises.
Three important, tough, very tough messages in a diplomatic way, but very tough and hard.
Sharp.
Very sharp ones. When the President spoke about our foreign policy, which aims at peace, development and construction, he also said that there are red lines and the national security of Egypt will not and will never be breached. That was one. A second one was what is happening in Gaza aimed at liquidating the Palestinian cause. And that is a very important warning to the whole international community, which the third message the President spoke about is take the blame and who should bear the responsibility of what is happening to the Palestinian people.
Mhm.
Reading into those important messages.
Well, we spoke about the first two. I mean, we mentioned that our borders are sacred and they are not going to be penetrated anybody wish. Okay?
But that was reassurance also to the Egyptian people.
Of
to
course,
be
but
assured.
also it's a message to any other entity who thinks that, well, we can have another resort in Egypt. No, this is not the case. But the third point that you mentioned actually is quite important, which is that Israel, or let's put it this way, I mean, when we want to analyze any situation, we have to take the root cause of it. And this is what we have to do today. Is the Palestinian last operation is the reason of everything we see? Or 60 years of colonialization is the reason? Which one is the reason?
Well,
I mean,
I have to say here
frustrating
both, because frustration, because I mean here.
Well, one frustrating cause is always that we start to read the map from the minute the Palestinian reacts, and this is wrong. I mean, you cannot start by saying the Palestinian did so. You have to start by there was a colony and a colonialist who are the Israelis who are occupying the territory. And this is not my words, this is the international community words and the international law. I mean, they call it occupied territories. Occupied by whom? By the Israelis. And when we will all recognize this fact, from here we can start to find a solution. But if we will start by saying that the Palestinian did so, this is going to be so unrealistic, and it does not really express the real fact behind it. So we have to take the things where they really started, with the occupation. This is the root cause of the whole situation, is the occupation.
Indeed, but what is happening now, as the President here says, is saying that the region, the whole region, is really witnessing a very dangerous turning point. So more pressures on the Palestinian particularly issue, and turning it from its correct path at this very exact moment. What does this mean?
Well, first of all, it means that the President understands that there is a frenzy of emotion going on in Israel, where they want to wipe out Gaza. And this not just will destroy civilians and destroy the city and destroy the band of Gaza, but it will also kill any opportunity for the two-state solution. It will not be just words when we are saying that the two-state solution is becoming very remote and cannot be achieved and so on. These were words, but what we are going to see now, and this is what I'm really worried from, is that Israel is planning totally to destroy Gaza Strip. And once it does that, there will not be any hope for reconciliation with the Palestinians or with the Arab nations as well. Nobody from the Arab nation, even though they have relations with Israel, old or new, old like Egypt and Jordan, or new like the rest of the Gulf countries and Morocco and so on,
yes,
who are having, nobody will accept the annihilation of the Palestinian cause.
Indeed.
So we have
Indeed.
to understand that the European and the Westerns have to start playing their role correctly by forcing Israel to the table of negotiations and
let me
finding
here
a
end
solution.
by the message the President sent today to the Egyptian people, and very briefly, because I have only 1 minute.
Sure.
The message that was sent to the Egyptians to stand steadfast and present, and to avoid rumors. How did you read that message?
I read
Just
that,
in 1 minute, because
I read that first of all, there is a lot of rumors spread, and we all know that there are people who are trying, and some entities who are trying to infiltrate doubt and skepticism into the Egyptian society. The president wants us to be secure that he knows about our problem. That's why he touched upon all the concerns of the Egyptian today regarding the Palestinian cause, whether we are going to support it, and second, that they are not going to penetrate into our country. That was the first thing. And the second thing, that please try to stick with one another. There's a lot of rumors going on.
Yes.
Please don't listen to any of them. Just listen to the official thing so that you won't be lost in the middle of all that.
Right. I guess with that, I would end our episode. Your Excellency, Ambassador Medhat Al-Meligi, former Assistant Foreign Minister, thank you so much for being with us tonight and definitely for your input.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And dear viewers, this was a very brief briefing to the event that just ended an hour ago, and definitely will be updating you in the coming hours with more. And many thanks for watching, and good night.